Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. It's probably April 4th. I'm Ryan Miller, and it's going to get easier and easier and more convenient and more pleasurable to sit alone with images on a screen given to us by people that do not love us but want our money. Matt Amberg!
That is exactly what I want on my tombstone, followed by an ellipses and then the word pepperoni.
I thought it was the most appropriate quote for what we do on Book Club for Movies this week, where we watch a movie. We watch one every week, and we hope you do too. You can get to us with your thoughts about it. We have kind of a club about it, if you think about it. This week, it's the end of the tour, suggested by Matt Amberg, who coincidentally also has the synopsis on it.
I do have a synopsis. I thought about doing all of this and trying to do this like one of the stars of the movie, and she's not really the star of the movie. She's kind of just a bit player. But I can't do an impression of Joan Cusack because she has this really specific way of talking, and I just don't know. She does something with her S's and her
the corners. Yeah, that was pretty good actually.
And her
right
mouth,
there.
like she does S's.
I think you could probably do it. Funny though, for some reason I went straight to My Girl when you said you were going to do an impression for one of the smaller girl characters of the movie.
Do I look like Anna Klumsky?
No.
Oh.
I thought you would do an impression of her for some
you know
reason.
what? Okay, wait. He needs his glasses. That's the best I got. He can't see
and it's good
his
enough.
Glasses. I remember when that movie came out, so many people in my school went and saw it, and I remember watching it and then just laughing at how awful it looked. It was, and I like the situation, the way it's filmed is fine, but it's totally the I'm gonna swap around my hand because there's nothing there. But here's your synopsis for a movie not related to My Girl, even in the most tenuous of fashions.
Okay, I was gonna say tangentially, maybe.
The end of the tour. It's gonna come at you in an hour and 46 minutes. Alrighty, what?
I think it's thematically related to My Girl too, actually.
My Girl 2 or My Girl
No.
Also?
Okay, sorry. What's the synopsis?
My Girl Also? Because which also, that's the third movie. You had My Girl 2, My Girl Also.
Is it really?
My Girl Also was like, it's the sister you didn't know she had.
Okay, actually, don't tell me, because I just want to believe the third one is called that.
She's like Zoidberg, and she just comes up, why not me?
Why not My Girl Also?
Why not My Girl? It wouldn't shock me if Dan Aykroyd made that movie, though.
Actually, no, this is great. I'm glad we're not talking about the movie yet. Because, and we did this on Tuesday. If you haven't tuned into Tuesday's show, just do that and you'll get this twice. It'll be great. Then you'll never forget. But you may have noticed that things are a little bit wonky. You may even know what that means. It means that podcasts are coming out on weird days of the week. Tweets are barely explaining what's going on. Our wives can't find us for large swaths of time. It's a mess. Basically, we're not dead, and we will get back on schedule.
No, we're not dead.
No.
I just have a death in the family.
Oh.
I'm going to milk that for a couple more weeks.
No, definitely, number one. Also, I feel like that it definitely contributed. It didn't help anything. Let's put it that way.
It definitely contributed. Are you kidding me? I was very busy.
But also, that's just been work. It's been really rough. Also, because we've been building up to what's going to happen later this week, I'm going to Colorado.
You're going to Colorado, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be great. Your house, in fact, I should say, in Colorado.
It is. But I'm gonna cut you off right here because I know the excitement that you have, and we are definitely going to have some further discussion at the end of our discussion here. Lots of discussion happening at the end of the tour, which both
at the end of the tour,
the movie, and when you come to visit, we'll have a larger discussion.
That's true, because it'll tie into what we are doing the next show that you will see after that, which we typically talk about.
That is
Either
correct.
way,
yes,
we're gonna keep it going quick on this one and just do our movie, which is the end of the tour. Matt, you must have a synopsis.
Okay, the end of the tour, going to come at you in an hour and 46 minutes, written by Donald Margulies, based on the book written by David Lipsky, directed by James Ponsoldt, starring Jason Segel, Jesse Eisenberg, and Joan Cusack. Here is your Book Club for Movies synopsis for the end of the tour. Fledgling author David Lipsky, upon hearing of David Foster Wallace's death, recounts his 5 days learning what makes a solitary man able to write a 1,000-page novel and finding out that Wallace's life may not be what Lipsky expected it to be. Yeah. David Foster Wallace.
David Foster Wallace, which I had not heard of before this movie, which I had not heard of before you told me about it and told me that we were going to do it this week, actually. You've seen it before, no doubt.
Yes.
I've seen the people in it before.
Yeah, there are some of them.
And there's actually not a ton of them, really.
Couple.
We've been over Anna, is it Chlomsky?
Norm Chomsky?
So I'm coming at this from square zero, as I often do, it seems. Is there anything you want to tell our delightful viewers before we dive into this?
Yeah. Okay. So the big thing that I do want to mention about this movie in particular and how it relates to David Foster Wallace, this is a well explained in terms of film, an exaggeration of some of the stuff, but it is completely based off of tapes that Lipsky has that he wrote a book on, that he read, he did a book tour of his own on. And
okay.
And so the story here is very, very close to reality. And Jason Segel does, especially if you dig into further along with who he was, Jason Segel did a really great job figuring out how to affect himself and work into who David Foster Wallace was on kind of like, I don't want to say a surface level, but on like a subcutaneous level.
That's good. That's below the surface, like by definition.
Yes.
But no, he's becomes the character. I have this in my notes, and I think it's a great place to start. He becomes this guy, and it's fantastic to see Jason Segel do work like this. Like, I like Jason Segel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I think he's cool. I mean, even that TV show,
How I Met Your Mother.
Sure. But the Muppet movie, these are just some of the examples of movies he's done. All of them. I Love You, Man. Fantastic. But you don't get a great sense of range from those roles. Like, he's playing the guy he knows how to play, even if he's doing it masterfully. Here he's doing a character and he's freaking nailing it. It is great to see him do this stuff and be just freaking great at it.
And with him, he's one of those guys, I think too, that when you see, especially if you watch I Love You, Man and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where those characters are, man, they're kind of, they're very close in who they are. There's obviously some serious differences, but you could see those characters easily being related to each other. Like they're brothers or cousins or something.
Played by the same guy. I don't know.
But when you see him, it's like, oh, there's Jason Segel. I think he's really funny. This is a movie where the first minute you see him, like for me anyways, it's he's not, like, the movie is not super heavy. It's not super light. It's kind of this, it has some heavy themes to it, but it tries to keep it on a slightly lighter than being weighed down and bogged down by it. But you can totally, like, for me, it was the minute he shows up, you're like, oh, that's Jason Segel, but he's not carrying himself like Jason Segel. He doesn't walk like Jason Segel. He doesn't really talk at all like he, and nope. That was one of the things that really stands out, is how he changed how he speaks completely. Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a word. I think this is the one you're going for besides lighter or what you were getting at with those words. This movie is intimate.
There you go.
It's mostly shot handheld. It's shot very close up, and I think it's the right decision. And I think for 90% of it, it is wonderful. Like, it's directed really well, and the choices made are good. But it had a rough start for me, and it was in this. It might even just be the first 10 minutes of the film, maybe the first 5 minutes, but because it is so close and intimate. Jason Segel's still nailing it. Jesse Eisenberg, not as much. I think because, and again, this is just in the beginning. I think his character is given maybe a little bit less and operates more as a foil, even though I would say he's the character you enter the movie through, obviously, because he's the one you're kind of supposed to experience David Foster Wallace through, even though he's possibly the hero of the movie, for lack of a better term. But early on in the movie, there are these moments, and there's two at the very least. And they're small things. He's like packing his bag to go on this trip. I forget what the other thing is, but both the editing and the direction are such that it lingers on Jesse Eisenberg just long enough that I think his weaknesses as an actor are kind of laid bare. Like he just gives too many looks to the camera because the camera's still there. And
all right,
I think it's something you have to be good at catching, especially if you're going to do an intimate movie like this. And I think after those two kind of things where I'm like, oh man, I hope I don't have to, I hope I'm not just seeing these over and over throughout. And some of it could have been solved with editing. Some of it could have been solved with direction. So there's, I'm not going to say who or what, but luckily it did not carry on throughout the course of the movie. So rocky start, but still, I think intimate is the word you're looking for to describe the main tool of this movie to communicate its story.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I don't disagree with you about the first 10 minutes. I really do like the opening sequence, like the very first moments of the phone call and then Eisenberg looking stuff up. And but it like there is, I understand, it's the opening migration from him being a Rolling Stone reporter to asking his boss for can I go do this? And then being told, okay, go ahead and do it. There's a little bit of clunkiness there, but I feel like once he and Jason Segel are on screen together, that kind of dissipates.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. But that, I will admit also that first stuff is important because it does establish the character of Lipsky as this up and coming writer who's taken a job at Rolling Stone. So, he hasn't achieved what David Foster Wallace has achieved at this point. There's that moment where he hears about David Foster Wallace's book,
Infinite Jest.
Yeah. How would I not know that? Infinite Jest. And hears all these things about it. And he's like, it couldn't possibly be that good.
His girlfriend does say, okay, but what if it actually is that good? You're just going to have to read it.
Because we do get that scene of him reading the book in bed and finding out, that, oh yeah, it is that good. So then he pitches the story to his boss and his boss takes him up on it. So yeah, the beginning stuff is important and done well enough. We need that stuff for what comes next.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because there is a huge transition because we never go back to that really. You never get those. Like, I guess maybe there are a couple of shots like that, but really few and far between. And when you get shots like that are kind of, they're not quite as intimate, which again, very rare.
They are super rare.
To me, they're almost those moments of, they're almost pulled out in a way of trying to reflect where Lipsky is at in terms of, he's spending all this time with Wallace and is very, very one-on-one. And then he has those moments of, these two, the two we'll get to it, the two women that Wallace knows. And then you get a little bit of some more wider stuff, but it's also, maybe I'm just reading into this because I want to, but I feel like some of that clunky stuff as I'm thinking about it, maybe that's way more purposeful than I'm thinking it, or maybe it's not, but it would almost make sense for that to be kind of purposeful because he, at the beginning of the movie, he is kind of clunky and he's a mess. And he's not a mess in that like he's falling apart. He just he's not doing what he wants to do. He knows he's not. He can't really get to where he wants to go. And he's an author that's, like I said, fledgling, and he's got a book out, but it's not doing anything. And then he hyper focuses in on David Foster Wallace, and then the moments where he's not, where it's not just him and Wallace, the world kind of comes into view again, and it's almost always kind of a mess around him. So I don't know, maybe.
I think you're getting at the heart of the movie either way. Like when those two characters come together, the way the characters, and not even just Eisenberg and Segel, but the way those two characters play off each other was my favorite part of the movie, and I think is the strongest part of the movie. They are such well understood characters, and this time, by the actors, but also by the writing, that even though this does appear to be a story, actually I wouldn't say it's a story about David Foster Wallace. I would say it's a story about the end of the tour, or even maybe just the tour, when you think about what they mean by that or what that might mean. But it's not even so much that Eisenberg's character is coming up as an author or hasn't achieved that level of success, although that is definitely something that's touched on. It's that they're so different. Like Eisenberg is this intellectual, like he's coming at writing from a completely, by the end of the movie, this is maybe called into question a little bit, But for the majority of the movie, he's coming at writing from a completely different space from this, even though David Foster Wallace is this brilliant guy that wrote this brilliant book that people are loving and teaches at a college in his town. He's still that guy in this movie that unironically and unabashedly enjoys Broken Arrow in the movie theater, right? And there's lots of little sequences like this where we get David Foster Wallace's character there's a term that he uses that towards the end of the movie that I'll bring in at this point, and it's regular guyness, right?
Yeah.
He's got this regular guyness to him throughout most of the movie that Eisenberg not only can't have, but you get the feeling disregarded or divorced himself from at an earlier point in his life, or discounted is maybe the best word, that was either ever a possibility or even a real thing. And I think if there are spoiler alerts for this movie, that's when that all comes to a head. This might be that. So, I mean, as always, we're going to spoil this stuff, but...
Well, and I mean, this... Okay, let's... I'm just going to cut that off at the head. There's no spoiling this. This is not a movie that, like, number one, it doesn't go all the way... It starts with David Foster Wallace is dead. We know he's dead in real life.
He's committed suicide.
Yes.
That is the opening scene of the movie, is Eisenberg getting a call that Foster Wallace has committed suicide.
Right. So there's no spoilers here. I mean, and I guess really more than anything is you get a character at the beginning, and it's that David Lipsky character, it's Eisenberg's character, who, and you're gonna have to help me with this one because there's a word I'm thinking of, and it's just
all right. I like words.
It's
maladroit.
It's preceded by the word. It's like you say it's this is purely
coincidental.
Academic, that's the word.
Purely academic. What's purely academic, Matt?
I totally don't remember anymore. I totally forgot what I was talking about.
Film criticism at Book Club for Movies.
We do it.
.com.
Oh yeah, okay, got it. So I think now let me help you. I think that the phrase you're looking for in terms of how David Lipsky kind of comes into everything, not only his writing, but how he looks at how he even deals with Wallace is purely academic. It's very, I have to take this at the most logical manner, and I have to do this in a very like these are the orders of operations. And I don't know that he's that stringent, but I feel like when he talks about his writing and when he talks about things like that, one of the discussions that they always seem to come back to is that David Foster Wallace is like, you have to kind of understand that there are things in this world that you can enjoy, and there are things that will beat you down, and there's all these things, and none of it is academic and none of it matters it like that. He makes it. Wallace is incredibly smart, and Eisenberg's character, Lipsky, they're both very smart. They just attack things from completely different mindsets. And, I feel like the way Wallace kind of describes things and lives his truth is through the concept of not over analyzing those particular things, not coming at them, I guess, maybe as an academic, but coming at them as like, well, okay, what are we doing here? And then thinking about it later on. And he talks about throughout the movie, it's brought up that he has massive anxiety and he's depressed and he has all of these things and all of these, mental health issues, and that he tried to commit suicide, and all of it feeds into this, like the opposite person of David Lipsky. Like he is chaos, whereas David Lipsky is very like, I've got a road to go on.
Okay. And let's come back to that. I think part of the reason we might run into issues and maybe stumble through some of this is because it's very apparent within the first act that this movie has gone to the before school of filmmaking. Speaking of before sunset, before sunrise, before midnight, all that. In that we're going to make a movie by talking through it, right? Like that's very much the first half of this movie, at least.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's more plot to it than a before movie, which is literally just talking. But a lot of the things that we're getting at, and a lot of the things that our major themes of this film are communicated by way of a lot of words, right? But by way of a lot of words from David Foster Wallace, most often, so we if you hear us stumbling through some of that, it's because you should probably just go, number one, watch the movie. But I mean, this movie also made me want to go read his words or find those tapes or read Lipsky's book on this thing, right? To get it. And at some point, we're like 5 things removed here. So probably do that, but also ignore us to some degree.
Well, yeah,
is that what I'm getting at?
The thing with Wallace, man, I watched this movie and I gave Infinite Jest a try probably 15 years ago, and it's not an easy book to get through.
Okay.
That's a bear of a book. That doesn't and I think at this point in my life now I'd probably go back and it'd be a better and easier read for me, than in my early 20s where I was focused way elsewhere and just wanted to read it. I wanted to read that in my late teens, early 20s because it was the same reason I wanted to read almost anything that I did was to look smart,
because you're in your late teens and early 20s. Yeah,
right. Exactly. I wanted to find all the books and go, okay, well now I understand that, so, I can say, yeah, I've read Ayn Rand and yeah, nutcase. What an absolute
that's easy
bonehead she was. but like Wallace is one of those guys where you read some of his papers and just read about him, and he is the epitome of genius that just it cannot last itself. Like it seems like you find these people, and I think they mention this. Eisenberg's character mentions that he is an author that's like once in a generation, like Steinbeck. Right, yeah. And yeah, I think he's probably right. I think that Wallace is one of those guys that was, and you'll be hard pressed to find most people, I think, that have read or listened to him or read not just his books, but some of the other stuff he's put out. I think you'd be hard pressed to find people not say that about him, that he was this troubled genius and he was the epitome of it. Like everything that could go wrong for him, that he made it go wrong, to a point, but things that could happen to him that would give him triggers and stuff, like they get at that in the film. They do.
He very often speaks about TV kind of being his crutch. Like he wasn't addicted, even though he talks about the dark moments in his life where he was drinking a lot and stuff like that. And those are turning points of the film, so we'll come back to those. But he talks about like TV being his actual addiction, right? And we actually see that in the movie numerous times where he does just stay up too late watching TV once before they have to get on a plane, or is just kind of they're out with those girls you mentioned and he's just watching TV the whole time until they fall asleep on the couch. Like that's at the forefront of a lot of what he says and does. And I don't mean to shortchange Jesse Eisenberg's character, actually Honest Lipsky's character, because even though it is used to probably further complement David Foster Wallace, he's given some good moments. Like there's that moment where he decides not to go to the hotel and stay with David Foster Wallace. Why do I have to say all 3 of his names every time?
It's David Foster Wallace, because you just and it's really funny because in the movie he calls himself, he's like Dave Wallace, and they actually
it sounds weird. I'm like, oh, Dave Wallace, huh?
They were like, why David Foster Wallace? Well, because there was a Dave Wallace.
That's true.
And then
they have a whole thing about it. Okay.
Yeah.
When he decides to stay at Wallace's place instead of going to the hotel, and he puts him into a room that's just piled with books. Right. So he's sleeping like at the bottom of this book mountain that's basically just this visual representation of a successful writer. Although if you think about it, like a room empty of books because he sold them all would be successful, right?
Well, yeah, and it's it is totally a funny moment because it's a literal moment for Lipsky to be overwhelmed and towered by this gargantuan popular writer that he
living in
is.
Wallace's shadow. Yeah,
right.
No, there are great moments like that for his character,
sure.
And I think where it's put to its greatest use, and this is what we kind of touched on. This is us coming back to something we say we come back to.
No, is
when he calls Wallace out on some of his regular guyness. Like they do have an issue with their David Foster Wallace has these 2 girls that come to one of the readings, I think, right? He knows them from before. He went to college with one, and
the other one wrote a fan letter.
That's right. And they hang out, and Lipsky is very obviously seen to connect more with one than the other, which I thought was maybe a budding romance or a flirt type thing. And then at some point I was like, well, he is a writer for Rolling Stone. Like, this girl is giving him some of the poems that she's had published. So there are layers to it, but the movie very much shows you that they're kind of in a flirty thing. There's an intimacy there also. And Wallace reacts to it, like doesn't like it. And we get the most awkward and probably confrontational moment between the two. And it sours them both on each other for a good, 5-10 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
Until they finally get back into it, kind of try and resolve whatever this is. And Lipsky basically approaches David Foster Wallace about, the bandana, about his image, about this quote unquote, he doesn't call it an act, but he does kind of hint at it being an affectation, this regular guyness of him. Like, he's like, we've all seen your book. Like, you are a brilliant guy and you still act like the guy that likes Broken Arrow. Like, he kind of calls some of that into question.
Sure.
And in the movie at the time, I'm like, no way, man. Like, David Foster Wallace is just this guy. Like, he was this crazy, he was this down to earth weirdo that could still do brilliant stuff. So I think in a simpler movie, yeah, maybe that's what happens is that's kind of lauded and that's given weight.
Sure.
But he responds to that in kind, like the line where he says regular guyness, he's like, you're right, I do treasure my regular guyness. And there is no actual finality to that argument in the moment. Like, no one side is right then. It's treated very well. The whole film is written very well. And this is, again, probably one of the linchpins of it and one of those instances of those two characters coming together that I think is the best part of the film.
Sure. No, and I mean, so first of all, with a movie about a character, about a person like David Foster Wallace, if the writing isn't good, that movie fails.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, you can't screw with that. And I think that's another one where I would love to know how much the screenwriter, the writer of this movie was into Wallace. Like, super into it? Did he just read the book and then adapted it? Like, I'm curious about that because they really all seem to understand and love what Wallace represented and tried to make, like, I think it's interesting that earlier on in the show, you said, for lack of a better word, that Wallace is the hero. And I think it's really interesting because that's one of those things where I feel like David Foster Wallace would immediately say, you are wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And that was
that.
If you can't find a better word, you don't say it. Because there is, like, this is a great story in that there is no hero because it's very much a piece about humans interacting and growing with, like, there's an opposites attract here thing. There is enough correlation, sure, like enough of a thread for these two guys to get together and on some surface level really enjoy each other. But they're so different in how they view things and how they live their lives, in how they do the thing that connects them. The thread that connects them is also like the thread that makes them totally separate people.
Right. And the movie handles that just so freaking well. Thing. Like, it's strength. Yeah. It knows what the characters are. It knows how those two would come together, and it puts that relationship through so many kind of ups and downs because they're adversarial at times. I mean, they're professional at times because they talk about that numerous times, and he's always got the recorder going on and off. Like, he is interviewing him this whole time.
Right.
But they're still working on that rapport, and it turns into so many different things or becomes so many different things throughout the course of the film. And speaking of the script, yes, it is good. It's not perfect. And so just so we don't love this thing for an hour straight.
No. It's not a perfect movie by any chance.
There's one scene, and I think it is a weakness in the script, that at some point Lipsky gets a call or calls his boss back in his hotel room, and his boss is like, did you ask him about the heroin yet? He's like, no, I haven't done that. He's like, why haven't you asked him about the heroin yet? He's like, he's like, why? Because you like him? He's like, well, yeah, I like him. It's, number one, the dialogue is not great.
Stilted. It's really bad. Yeah.
Number two, I think that scene is completely unnecessary. I know why they thought it was necessary, and early on, you think it's because they want to give the film some impetus, right? Because they can't quite go all the way with, Before Sunset. Like they cannot do that. There's more plot to this than any of those movies, which is fine. And this, to compare it to those is unfair in a lot of different ways.
Right.
But they want to give it some impetus. And towards the end of the movie, when that rumor about the heroin is brought up, it's used as an excuse for David Foster Wallace to fly off the handle a little bit. Like there's a heated discussion at that moment. And this comes, I'm going to say late in the third act. This is right before the end, probably 15 minutes before the end of the movie. So I understand why they thought they needed it, because they wanted to have that scene, and how do you get there without anything else. But I'm 90% sure that scene in the middle where he gets a call from his boss about the heroin was added after the fact. If you watch it, he's facing out the window. You don't see his lips move. The whole thing just has this created after the fact feeling that somebody was like, we have to point at this final discussion in the third act more.
Which, again, it's one of those things that I feel like you never had to mention it. You could have just let Eisenberg, because there's a ton that we're like, are we supposed to go into this knowing everything about David Foster Wallace the minute he does? Like, no, he doesn't know everything about him. We don't need to know that rumor existed for him to say, I just want to address a rumor. Is this, and then Wallace can go off on it, and it works. That works totally fine.
Or just ask him about it once before and he shrugs it off or something like that. It's
sure.
Weird because there is a moment in the movie where he does that. He questions him out of the blue about his suicide watch while they're on a plane. And yeah, the mood changes immediately, and it's a great moment, and they have a great discussion after it. I don't know why he couldn't have done that, and it just gets brushed off about the heroin or something like that. So that's my one little thing about this thing. Other than that, it's really a beautiful movie. Like it's not like one of the best films I've ever seen. But it's really a beautiful film. And by the end, how it ends kind of with a tribute to him. He has this thing he likes to do where he goes and dances at a Baptist church just because. And it is a wonderful moment given that final confrontation with them in the car about his regular guyness. Because yes, while he does admit that he doesn't call it an affectation of sorts, but he admits that it's a thing he's conscious of, right? And to have the final moments be kind of almost the pinnacle of that, where he's dancing at the Baptist church. Why? Because he learned it's something he likes to do, type thing. It's a beautiful film and a beautiful moment, and it's a really good ending. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think there are probably some stuff in there that I, in some ways, I could do without, and there, in other ways they make sense. The whole Mall of America bit, the conversation between the two of them is really interesting. The part with the two women, like.
The whole part with the two women?
It's just like there was they set up the I'm addicted to TV so that they could go to her house so they could get them into a fight. Maybe that's how it worked out in real life. I just like I don't know. Yeah,
that seemed a little, and maybe it's because it's dealing in like very familiar, like that scene belongs in like a zillion other movies that are way worse.
And maybe
right?
maybe that's it. Maybe
the whole jealousy thing. I mean, in the end, yeah, it's a thread throughout the film. Maybe that part isn't handled so well. Like that's not only their excuse to kind of to blow apart for the last little bit of the film, but also when they come back together, they like, do you remember that line where Lipsky is leaving and David Foster Wallace is like, "Hey man, I'm not sure you want to be me." Like they address some of that head on, and I think maybe that's a better solution. But
and I mean that's ultimately what Lipsky kind of finds, right? Is that I think at the end of the conversation that he has, and after reflection, I think we understand better that Lipsky understands himself a little bit better, and he knows, I guess he knows that there's a different way to do things than just his academic reading of things. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. No,
he's learned from the character of Wallace for sure. I mean, that's one of the aims of the movie, I would say, obviously.
Sure. I mean, the movie is certainly a part of like his growth, and it is, like I said, I think that this is I think in so many ways they are opposites, and they have, one or two tenuous threads, but even those threads are so different. They're different material or something. I don't know.
Sure. looking forward to the sequel.
Yes, the end of the tour 2, the resurrection.
And we haven't done a lot of stuff justice in this thing. Like, I think death is a thread that runs through it and is dealt with very well.
No, overall, I think the movie, it's a really, really good movie. I think that it's a great place for people to kind of get a general concept of who David Foster Wallace was. And I think that if you watch this movie, you are going to kind of maybe want to go and check out Infinite Jest and see what that's all about. The fact that was another book, by the way, that had been over and over again said, you can't make this into a movie. Then they made it into a movie. Didn't do so great. I still haven't watched it yet. But
Infinite Jest is a movie?
Yeah, with Joaquin Phoenix. Came out like 2 years ago.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh, really? That's okay.
Yeah.
I would still give The End of the Tour 109 stars.
Sure, out of 114.
It's a good film.
Pretty good.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe as good as the one we're going to watch next week?
I don't know. I got an idea of which movie we should watch next week. And hey,
do you?
Okay, wait. I've got an idea. All right. How's this one
You've
hit you?
pitched a few at me. I think I know which one we should do a show on.
I think we're going to do a show. I think we're going to do a twofer next week. We're going to do a double action here.
Okay.
I think that's what we're going to do. I think since you're going to be visiting me this week, and it's the week of April 1st, and on the week of April 1st, when you go all the way to the end of that week on Friday, that would be April 5th. And on April 5th,
so this is how the calendar works.
Yeah, exactly. There's a Gregorian calendar.
My favorite is that anybody who listened on Tuesday already knows everything you're going to say right now anyways.
Yeah, but
the build-up is universal.
Yeah, and so when we get to the 5th, that's when Shazam comes out, and Shazam's my favorite comic book character of all time. So we're gonna go see Shazam. So next week, go to the theater, go see Shazam. But also, we're gonna see another movie while you're here. We're gonna go.
Not just the Superman Shazam cartoon that I'm also gonna watch.
That is correct. We are not actually. If you're watching it, at most we'll watch Flashpoint just because I really like it.
Okay.
No. I think we're gonna go back to the theater and we're gonna check out Us as well. The Jordan Peele.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that.
Yes.
I want to see that very badly.
We are going to see it.
Wait, we're going to twofer that and Shazam?
Yeah, well, okay, look. Here's the reality with Shazam. There's not going to be a ton of in-depth stuff. It's
whatever.
It's a family film, okay? There is not going to be a ton of story here because I can tell you the story, all of it. I can tell you exactly how it goes. Like from zero to...
That doesn't matter, though. If you talk for less than an hour about Shazam, I will be flabbergasted.
Oh, we will, believe me.
There's no reason why we couldn't. I'll be there. These shows are going to be live. You're going to see, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if we could technically stream these things. You're going to hear us in the same room together for these shows, whatever they are.
Yeah, we don't know.
I think we do. I think you just said what they were.
Shazam and Us.
Shazam!
Say the word. I'm going to say it repeatedly. I may yell it a lot during the movie. I don't know. I'm really, really excited.
Me too.
Terribly
so tune back in on, I guess that's Thursday next week, or whenever this thing comes out. I'm on a plane Thursday to get to you, so I don't know when this show that we're listening to is going to come out. But it doesn't matter because how does the calendar work again?
Oh, yeah. So you have 1 week, and it goes like some days, and then you go from the beginning.